We are recording. Great. Hi there. My name is Sean Brilliant. I work for the Canadian Wildlife Federation, managing the marine program. And with me I have
Kathleen Martin, and I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian Sea Turtle Network.
Today we're here to talk to you about leatherback turtles and a little bit about the Great Canadian Turtle Race, which is a program that we've been running together to try and get people to connect better with leatherback turtles. Let me bring up some pictures here. So, we have a very big country, Canada. It covers a large part of this world, and many people are used to seeing a map of our country and seeing what it looks like. But in reality, our country also includes this much ocean. We have a large amount of ocean that surrounds our country and that we're responsible for looking after, that we're able to take advantage of in terms of the resources that are there, but we're also responsible to look after the wildlife that exists in those areas. And there's a lot of different types of wildlife that live in our oceans. There are strange creatures that live on the surface. There are strange creatures that sometimes come to the surface but live in the ocean. There are many other creatures that we're aware of, such as birds and whales and dolphins, and even large fish that a lot of people would recognize but don't necessarily get to see every day, but are very familiar with, at least from stories, and there are even more that we really don't know a whole lot about. One of the most amazing creatures that we're going to talk to you about today that is a part of our Canadian marine wildlife heritage are the leatherback turtles that come here to Canada. These are amazing, old-lived creatures that have been coming to Canadian waters for millennia, for longer than there was even a Canada around. And we've been working with the Canadian Sea Turtle Network to learn a bit more about them, so we wanted to talk to you a bit about them today. So, Kathleen, what can you tell us about these amazing creatures?
Well, leatherbacks are amazing. As Sean was saying, they've been around since the time of the dinosaurs, 150 million years, virtually unchanged. So when T-Rex was walking the earth, leatherback turtles were in the ocean. And one of the first things that people recognize about them, next slide, is that they have a shell that's different from other turtles. You expect normally turtles to have a hard, bony shell. And leatherbacks actually have a shell that's made up of thousands and thousands of tiny little bones that put together almost like a jigsaw or a big mosaic that make its shell really flexible. They're one of the deepest diving, certainly deepest diving reptiles. They can dive deeper than 1 kilometer, and this kind of flexible shell allows them to do that. And on top of the shell is a layer of fat, and then kind of a leathery skin, which gives the turtle its name. But you'll notice if you look at the photograph again that leatherbacks also have ridges that run the length of its shell. There are 7 ridges, and what they do is they make it a very hydrodynamic animal. It means that it can swim really quickly through the water. One of the other really cool things about leatherbacks is their size. So when they start their life, they're about the size of a billiard ball or a pool. If you're playing a game of pool, the size of those balls is about the size of their eggs. And leatherbacks are laid, their eggs are laid on nesting beaches in South and Central America. And when they hatch, they can fit into the palm of your hand, as you can see from this picture. And they weigh about as much as a Kit Kat bar. And then they grow to be enormously big in size. This is a picture of a leatherback turtle taken off the coast of Cape Breton Island, Nova Scotia, and you can see how big it is. They're enormously big animals. And I'm going to show you actually in relation to Sean's head how big a leatherback can get. This is the skull from a leatherback turtle. And if you put it next to Sean's head, this is the bottom of it, you can see how big that turtle's skull is.
I'm almost a full-size leatherback. Not quite.
So they can grow to be, 2 meters in length, just their shell. So they're really, really big animals, and they're quite amazing to see in the ocean. One of the other things you'll notice if you look at them is that they have, I'll just show you in a second, is that they have this pink spot on the top of their head, which is the lightest spot in a leatherback's body. If you are lucky enough to see leatherbacks on a nesting beach, you'll see that they have almost white polka dots all over their bodies in varying degrees. Yeah, they're amazing. We don't see that coloration as much by the time they come up north to us, but one thing that we always see is a really light spot. It's often pink or orange in color, which researchers call the pink spot on their head. And it covers something called the pineal gland, which and we're not exactly sure what the pink spot is there for. There are lots of mysteries about leatherback turtles, lots of things we're still trying to figure out. But what scientists hypothesize, or some groups hypothesize, is that that the leatherbacks use the pineal gland, light coming through, the angle at which the light comes through the pineal gland to figure out where they are in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it?
A lot of people, I've had a lot of people who comment, I'm sure you've heard this too, when they see a leatherback, they think, oh, he's been hurt. I see a hurt on his head. Because the leatherback is a beautiful blue and green or gray, but this pineal organ is bright pink, and it looks like it's been scratched or something, right? But of course, this isn't an injury. This is a part of how the turtle gets its way around the world in a way that we totally don't even understand.
Yeah,
they are amazing.
Really cool. So what are they doing in Canada? This is interesting. So you see them hatching on, they don't nest in Canada. You'll never see little tiny leatherbacks anywhere in Canada.
Or on the beach, unless they're in trouble.
Yeah, unless they're really, really, really sick or have died. But the turtles hatch in Central and South America, the ones we see up here off the coast of Atlantic Canada, and they come all the way up to where we are to feed on our abundance of jellyfish. And if you look closely at that photograph, you'll see that this turtle has a lion's mane jellyfish streaming from its mouth. And turtles have evolved so that they aren't bothered by the sting of a jellyfish. Lots of people wonder how it is they can eat them.
It'd be very hard to be able to find jellyfish in the ocean is something that's very amazing that we don't understand. To be able to eat a jellyfish intrigues me, but I'm not sure I'd be able to eat a jellyfish in the ocean, but these guys are much better adapted for that.
Yes. And one of the ways they're adapted is no turtles have teeth. No turtles in the world have teeth. But what leatherbacks and some other sea turtles have are amazing spines that line their whole esophageal tract and down into their stomach. And I'm going to show you what this looks like. This is a piece from a leatherback esophagus, and you can see how big and sharp these spines are. And the spines point downwards, so that when the jellyfish enters the turtle's mouth, it's kind of caught by them, and it's ripped up as it goes down. They can't come back up again because the downward pointing spines keep them going down. But they also, they're so, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's almost like a forest of these guys. And they're all different sizes. And so the bigger ones kind of rip up the jellyfish in a coarse way, and then there's little tiny spines that also rip them up in a more finely. And the idea is that leatherbacks get as much nutrition as they can from every single jellyfish that goes down.
And they eat a lot of jellyfish while they're here. Kathleen had mentioned earlier how the shells are unlike normal turtles, are not hard, but they're flexible. And these jellyfish will just balloon up here in Canadian waters. They get fat eating jellyfish. They eat so many of these things. Yeah,
they're 30% heavier in Canadian waters than they are in the nesting beach. They're 30% bigger. They get super fat. And at the beginning of the season, when we see leatherbacks here, you can see they're skinnier. And then by the end, they have big rolls of fat outside their necks and coming out of their kind of armpit area, flipper area, and down around their legs as well, or their back flippers. And it's really neat to see how much bigger they get. They'll eat their body weight in jellyfish a day at least, is what our research has shown. And that's quite amazing when you think that they can weigh routinely over 1,000 pounds, right? That's a huge number of jellyfish being vacuumed out of the ocean. And one of the things that's interesting is sometimes we'll be looking for jellyfish or looking for leatherbacks in the ocean, and we won't see any jellyfish anywhere. We'll be out in the boat and we'll see no sign of jellies. And then suddenly we'll see leatherbacks coming up to the surface with these great big jellyfish in their mouth. They're pulling them out from a lot deeper in the water column. So it's just incredible to me.
So they spend a lot of their time up here in Canadian waters. Because they are up here, we have a lot of fishing that takes place in this area. It's the possibility that they can get entangled in the different ropes that we use for our fishing activities or for any sort of boating activities that we use. This is one of the biggest threats that they face in Canadian waters. But this isn't the only threat that they face. They face other threats in other parts of the world where they visit as well, right?
Yeah, and a couple of different things. There's loss of habitat that's an issue for them, particularly in the nesting beach zone. As you can see here, there's a lot of pressure on those beaches. They tend to nest on beautiful, beaches, and they're places where humans like to go to hang out as well. So that's a problem.
This is a nesting beach from Florida. You can see this little strip of sand. This is the area where the turtles are going to lay their eggs. This is actually an area where they're going to go lay their eggs. And you can see humans also like going to these beaches, which often cause a lot of problems. And it's this loss of habitat that's a real threat as well.
And one of the issues too is lighting. Now Florida's really good for this, but a lot of the areas where turtles nest, they're not as strict about keeping lights off during the nesting season at night, because what happens is if a female turtle is coming onto the beach to nest and she sees a lot of lights, she'll aboard her nesting. She'll turn around and she won't lay her eggs. And the hatchling turtles, when they hatch, can get disoriented because they're looking for a bright spot on the horizon to move towards, which is usually the ocean. And if it's the lights of a tennis court or a resort, they can become disoriented and die.
The other threat that the turtles have faced, of course, over many, many years, is that when you have lots of turtles coming up and nesting on beautiful beaches such as this, is that they tend to be harvested. And this harvest hasn't always been careful, so more have been taken than they should have. And in particular, people have wanted the eggs. The eggs are a very valuable source of nutrition in some of these areas, and so people would harvest too many of these eggs. And this has been and continues to be a threat for these turtles in areas outside of Canada where they tend to nest and actually come ashore as well.
And one of the things that you'll probably hear people talking about is the issue that plastic bags can pose for leatherback turtles and plastics in general. So, if you think of the way a jellyfish looks in the water and you think of the way a plastic bag might look floating in the water, sometimes a turtle will ingest a plastic bag and it can block their gut and it can cause them to starve. I'll show you one of the things that we found. We had a leatherback turtle that had died. We do what's called a necropsy, which is like a human autopsy, but it's on an animal, and we take the animal apart to see what we can learn from it. And one of the things we found inside the animal was this, which is the plastic top of a jar. And it had been they can't break it down, their body can't break it down. It looks just as though you could put it right back on the jar.
Floating in the ocean, it may look like a jellyfish, it may look like something tasty for a turtle. It certainly fit, obviously, in a turtle's mouth and down their throat, and so they're going to consume it, right?
Tummy, yeah.
And how many of us use those types of jars and have those in our homes, of course? So these are some of the threats that the turtles are facing, and in addition to knowing that they're out there in our ocean and a part of who we are, we want people to understand the threats that they're facing as well. And how do we go about doing this? Well, one of the ways that we do it is we need to be able to tag them and see where they're going. And this is sort of how it's done.
Yeah, in order to protect animals, you have to know where they are. So leatherbacks are an endangered species, considered an endangered species worldwide. And because they travel between nesting beaches and Canadian waters, it's a really long way that they go. We really wanted to understand where they were going to be found in the ocean in order to start figuring out how we can best conserve them. So we catch them with a big butterfly net, basically. We go out into the ocean. We work with commercial fishermen on commercial fishing boats, and they are amazing research partners. And we catch the leatherback turtles, and then we satellite tag them. And what a satellite tag allows us to do is it allows us to follow where the turtle goes in the ocean. It gives us a track of where it's going, so we can understand how it uses its ocean environment. And the satellite tags record all kinds of really interesting information, and let us, in some cases, and special cases with special tags, allow us to see what the turtle does every couple of seconds, if you can get that satellite tag back, which, as you can imagine, is a really big deal.
So very hard to do. Very valuable information for us to inform ourselves about where these turtles are going and how our activities may be affecting them, but also an opportunity for us to use them as well. I just have to mention, I like this photo. You were talking about the layers of fat. Can you see the fat on the back of this guy's?
On its neck.
Its neck.
You can just see that built up. I don't know if you could show that with a little cursor or not, but you can see that whole ring. This photo was taken probably towards the end of August, so the turtles have been in Canadian waters for a long time, eating, and this guy, you can see also the layers of fat around its shoulder muscles and things like that.
The other thing we want to mention, and what we're looking at here, are CSTN staff and volunteers working on this, right? These turtles are incredibly large. The group that works on them is very attentive and very mindful of how they're handling them, so they make sure that they're very comfortable. And these turtles are very tough. And the impression I have, speaking with the scientists with CSTN and others, is that they're quite unconcerned about this whole process.
Oh yeah, they're incredibly docile. They don't really do anything. They kind of just wait there until you. We work with them very quickly, and we're very safe about it. As you can see from that photograph, we keep them partially submerged in the water, so they're really comfortable, and we keep them hydrated. And they just kind of hang out there,
and back in the
tag
water,
them, and send them right back on their way.
So the type of information that we get from these tags that CSTN's been producing as a result of putting on these tags kind of looks like this. Now this is a picture of part of the Atlantic Ocean up in the north, and the top there you can see the maritime provinces, Nova Scotia and Brunswick. You can see Newfoundland, and in the south you can see the sort of the tip of Florida and the northern tip of South America. This yellow track you're seeing is a turtle that we tagged in 2012, 2013 that we named Inspire, which is why it's called Inspire. And this is the track of that turtle from probably midsummer through to early spring, I would say. And this is This is half of the life track of the turtle, where they spend time in the north eating and then head to the south. This is a female turtle. Head to the southern beaches to lay her eggs.
And one of the things I really like about this track is it shows you, if you look at the way the amount of number of lines that are there, how much time they spend in Canadian waters, and then how much time they spend off the nesting beach. So the two most important places in the lifespan or the life history of this turtle are the nesting beach and then what's going on in Atlantic Canada when they're feeding. There's no other place that you'll see on that track where the lines are as squiggly or as wandering around as they are in those two parts, because they're staying for a long period of time. They're resident in those areas.
And moving in straight lines otherwise, which is an amazing thing to do in an ocean when you're surrounded by nothing but waves. How do you swim in a straight line? Amazing. So we've been using this information and running the Great Canadian Turtle Race, which many of you have probably heard of. We ran one in 2012-13, and we've run one in 2015-16, where we are right now. The intention of this turtle race is to use this information about where the turtles are and how they're swimming so that people can follow them and realize that this is real time. These are big, large, prehistoric marine reptiles swimming through our ocean in real time while we're sitting here talking to you. They're out in the ocean approaching their beaches or hanging out waiting for it to get warm here again. And the intention of the turtle race was to try and connect people to these turtles. This most recent race, for example, we had 4 different turtles that were tagged that we show here: Sharon, Christy, Abigail, and Beverly. And these are models of the turtles that we had built to try and demonstrate what the turtles look like, because we want to really try and connect people to what these turtles look like and how they move, and to know that they are actually a real thing that's out there.
And one of the reasons we are just showing female turtles is that what we wanted was a chance for a turtle to actually reach the nesting beach. So if the turtles that we were going to show you, we've certainly satellite tagged male turtles before too, but the turtles that we wanted to work with to show you through the Great Canadian Turtle Race are female turtles, because we want to see, if we're lucky enough, we want to see them get tagged in Canadian waters, follow their tracks down, and then see them land on the nesting beach, where hopefully we can get one of those transmitters back.
Yes. This is an example of a 3D model that we have made of Abigail. Agile Abigail is her race name. And if I zoom in, we should be able to see part of her, but maybe not. And we have 4 other turtles. We have Beverly as well. We have Christy, and we have Sharon. And these 3D models, as you can see, probably work better on your computer than mine is. You can zoom in, you can look at them better, you could turn them around and look at them in different angles, and I hope you're seeing this, but my computer's having a difficult time doing it. And the intention is to get to know these animals. Although they do tend to look all the same, once you spend a lot of time looking at them, as Kathleen has, they tend to look quite different, and you start to really notice the differences among them.
And you can see that really nicely on those models. They're really worth taking a good look at, because, for example, if you look at Abby, her front left flipper has had the bottom end of it amputated, likely a shark or something else nipped her when she was smaller. And you can see her rear flipper has quite a little bit of the skin taken out of it. And that's just, the turtles are all, just like people. They're all different if you spend enough time looking. And I think that these models, when you spend time with them, you'll really get a chance to see that yourself as well.
Yeah. Now the maps that we produce for the turtle race look like this. This is an example of the race that's currently occurring. Once again, on the north, you sort of see USA and Canada up here towards the top of the page, and towards the south, towards the bottom of the page in the south is South America and the Caribbean. These various colored lines are the tracks of the turtles. They appear to start in the middle of the ocean, because this is when we started the race. We sort of waved the flag and the race took off in late October, early November, and so the turtles were already out in the ocean, and we've been tracking them since. You'll notice a purple, an orange, a green, a red, and a yellow line. Only the orange and the red line are continuing. This is because 3 of our turtles, in green, purple, and yellow, have all stopped transmitting.
Yeah, and what's happened there for the most part, what we can see, the information that the tag sends to a satellite, which then gives us, we download the information from the satellite that's been collected by the satellite, includes things like the batteries of the tag and how deep the turtle's diving, where it's going specifically, the different GPS locations of where it's going, a whole pile of different things. One at ocean temperature, how much salt is concentrated in the water where they're swimming, salinity. But one of the things that we can check is battery level. And so what we know is the batteries on those different tags were still working and were still really strong. And from the way the the way the turtle transmission stopped, what became clear to us is it's likely that they've been biofouled, those tags, which means that little tiny plants and organisms have colonized on the tag and have blocked the things that we need in order to send a good signal, the switches.
We get a lot of concern from people who think that the turtles have disappeared or been hurt or died or eaten or something. There's not a whole lot out there that's going to eat turtles these big, the animals these big in the ocean, but it is more likely that these things are biofouled than the animals met some sort of unfortunate situation.
Yeah, they didn't stop in an area of heavy fishing, for example. So in some of the cases, if they had been in certain parts of the ocean and suddenly the transmitter stopped, we would have real concern. But where they were, and just because the transmissions trickled a little bit down, it's really pretty likely a case of biofouling.
Now, I want to talk a bit about, come back to those turtles that are missing in a second, but let's just take a quick look and zoom in on one of these turtles. This is Agile Abigail, who spends her summers in Canada and then heads to Florida to nest.
Like so many Canadians.
And here's Abby making a beeline for the Florida coast, which I'm showing here on the left. And you can see her sort of doing a typical behavior where she's approaching a beach, and now she's sort of starting to swim around and twist around and decide whether she's going to nest or whether she's going to hang out there for the winter before she turns around and comes back. And this is all happening essentially live as we're updating it on the websites, and people have a chance to make these connections with these turtles. The other turtle that I'm going to show you is this one in red, and this is Red Rocket. This is a turtle that we tagged and raced in 2012. We followed her in 2012. And what she's doing right now, we happen to know because of this data from 2012, is she's here in the Caribbean, and she's going to swim over here to the north coast of Colombia, down here in this little elbow over here. Pardon me, let me get back to my other photos here. The distance that these turtles go are amazing. We also plot this on the website as well, according to each of the colors that you saw on the tracks. You can see the Red Rocket's track here as she's heading down into the Caribbean at the top. Agile Abigail is the orange one in the bottom. The other turtles are the ones that are shorter now because their transmitters ended before we could continue tracking their distance. But you can see they're all doing about the same amount, whether we're tracking them or not. Red Rocket and Agile Abby have gone almost or just over 5,000 kilometers now in the 4 months that we track them. It's an amazing distance that these turtles travel, and you can follow them here. We also provide information on how far each turtle is traveling each day. So this is Abigail again. And since the beginning of the race in early November, right through to just last week, we plot how many kilometers they travel on each day. So they're swimming essentially continuously. Some days they're going quite slow, only a few 5 or 10 kilometers. Some days they're doing over 100 kilometers in a day. Most of the time during this migration, they're going between sort of 30 to 70 kilometers a day. Just an amazing clip for an animal just swimming through the ocean.
Yeah, and I always have to remind myself that they're actually swimming. When we think of traveling great distances, we think of taking the car or flying in a plane, and so you can get from Nova Scotia to Florida in just a couple of hours, right? But when you think of having to swim that far, it's just amazing to me. If you've ever had to swim lengths in a pool, you'll appreciate what it might be like to swim 30 kilometers in a day, let alone 130.
Yeah, and then 30 again the next day, and then 30 again the next day.
It's
totally amazing. So let's talk about Red Rocket for a second. This is the 3D model that we had made of Red Rocket. She was our race winner in 2012, 2013. And as I mentioned, she swam down to a coast on the north shore of Colombia.
Bobolito Beach.
Bobolito. And the amazing thing about Red Rocket, or the interesting thing that's a bit of a moral for our turtles that have gone missing this year, of course, is that her tag turned off just before she nested. And we had a moment of panic where suddenly it looked like we were going to have a winter nesting, and all of a sudden she disappeared. But it turned out to be a good news story.
Yeah, because what happened, one of the things that's interesting, when they start going down into the Caribbean area, there's so many different countries they can nest on, and we had no idea where Red Rocket might be going. So we had people from all, our amazing nesting beach sea turtle colleagues from all different countries kind of on alert, waiting to see if Red Rocket was going to come towards them. We saw her, moving towards Colombia, and then all the transmissions stopped. And so we thought, oh no, the tag's been knocked off by a male who might be mating with her, or it's become biofouled. Who knows what's happened? And then it was just a couple of, I think it's 10 days later, it might have been.
Amazing.
the people who are working the beach on Bobolito Beach, so they walk up and down the beach trying to protect the turtles from poachers and trying to make sure that they can nest safely and taking information about the animals that come to that part of Colombia. It's a relatively new beach program at that time, really great people working there. And they found red rocket nesting on their beach, and they collected the transmitter from her, and which was really exciting for us because on that transmitter is all kinds of information about the behavior of sea turtles or behavior of red rocket that we would normally not get access to because we don't always get the transmitters back. It's pretty rare that we're able to make that all line up. The turtle nest, the transmitter's still working, the person happens to see her on the beach. It's quite an amazing thing. And so pretty exciting to be able to show you. This is Red Rocket's actual tag. They sent it back to us and we were able to get information off of it, and now we use it in educational programs just to show this tag amazingly went from Nova Scotia all the way to a remote nesting beach in Colombia and then came back to us. So
attached to the back of a 900 kilogram reptile swimming through 5,000 kilometers of ocean. It's amazing. And the amount of information is incredible and very useful as well for us.
All the things it's seen, it's pretty neat. So.
And it's amazing to think that this little thing, it's a heavy resin. It's not very heavy hardly at all, actually. And it's got a little antenna on it. And this survived 5,000 kilometers swimming from Canada to Colombia. How amazing is that, eh? Very, very cool.
And one of the things that's really interesting about Canada is that we do have turtles that come into Atlantic Canadian waters every summer from all kinds of countries, all kinds of other countries. We've been able to, one of the ways we do put satellite tags on the back of sea turtles, but one of the other things we do is we use little tags called flipper tags on the back of, that we apply to the flippers of sea turtles. And they're just tiny tags. They have a number on one side and they have an address on another side.
Like an earring.
Yeah, it's like an earring, although we put it on the flippers. And they allow the turtles to be found on the nesting beach and identified as coming from Canada, or we can see the tags on the back of other turtles and we can figure out where they come from in the world. And so it's a way of tracking where the beaches are, where our turtles come from, and a way of other beaches seeing where Canadian turtles are coming from. And so we've identified more than 14 other countries that are hosted Canadian leatherbacks. And so it tells us two things. First of all, it tells us how important it is that we care for leatherbacks in Canadian waters, what a really important part of the world Canadian waters are for this species. You could have something terrible happen to a nesting beach country and you lose the turtles in that nesting beach area. But if we had something terrible happen in Canadian waters, we would lose turtles from many, many countries in the world. So it's really, I always call it the UN of sea turtles off Atlantic Canada. But also, it's really important to remember that we have to steward this animal internationally, that when we're caring for nature, we don't control nature, right? We only get to take care of part of, we can do our part in Canada, but then we also have to sort of start working with the rest of the world, or make sure that we're working really well with the rest of the world to care for those animals in other parts.
Mm-hmm. The role that you have in this is being aware that the leatherback turtles are a part of Canadian heritage, but also a part of the international heritage. Learning as much as you can about them. Check out the Great Canadian Turtle Race website. Check out Canadian Sea Turtle Network. And also keep in mind, the leatherback turtles, in this case, we use them as ambassadors. They're beautiful animals. They are fascinating. They have this incredible migration path that connects them, but they're not the only one. We have many other animals here in Canada that are probably very well known that spend part of their time here in Canada and part of their time in other countries. Killer whales, right whales, even birds and fish and sharks who spend part of their time here and part of their time in other parts of the world. And we need to be mindful about how we affect them and how we affect our ocean and the things we can do to improve them. So this is all we're going to talk to you about now. We want to try and encourage you to go out and find out what you can about leatherback turtles. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Please check out the websites, both the Canadian Sea Turtle Network and the Great Canadian Turtle Race from the Canadian Wildlife Federation. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at the emails here on your screen.
And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll get to talk to you soon. Bye now.
Bye.